Being free and independent is what everyone is pursuing. You want to have all the time at your disposal to do things that you want to do, but not because that whatever you want to do, you are doing it for the purpose of earning a shilling to settle a bill somewhere. You are dreaming of being at a point where you have amassed millions, hundreds of millions, a huge amount of wealth pool or asset pool that can generate all that money that you need for whatever you want to do it. But you are a steward. You are taking care of resources that don't belong to you. You have been entrusted with those resources and you are supposed to be accountable transparently to the giver of those resources. At a lower personal level, we have talked about you being a steward of your own resources because we have used that word relatively because you are transiting. You transited from being a baby who was dependent on the parents who took that responsibility as a job entrusted by God to take care of you, mold you, teach you ways that you shall not forget when you get older, and ensure you become independent. Independent at that stage meant that your parents will raise you to a point where you are able to look for your own means. You no longer have to depend on the parent. And that's why at some point the Bible says that it's sorrow when a parent has to bury a child because there is that progression. Then after once you have become independent of your parents, you start pursuing the next journey of becoming independent of yourself financially. Independent of yourself in that you convert your hours, you convert the resources that you will get entrusted, and you convert your active money into great pool of assets, your new wealth that will have replaced you or will replace you in generation of cash flows that need to cater for your expenses. That is the time you become independent. Independence, financial independence, is freeing yourself, freeing your time. We are all chasing time. And it's at that point where you are supposed to realize that time is more valuable than money. Wealthy people chase time. They want to free their time. While at the lower stages in the financial freedom journey, you trade time for money. While a wealthy person will leverage on people and trade money in exchange for time. So we are working towards a point in our journey whereby we shall start trading money for time. And that is what you are purchasing. As you keep on investing, as you keep on purchasing an extra asset, be it financial or physical asset, you are adding to your pool that you will use to trade money for time. So at the end of the day, you are looking at freeing your time. It will pay you much better if you can adopt in doing things actively that give you that element of freedom. Because freedom need not be financial. Financial freedom is just one of the many freedoms that you are working on or looking for throughout your journey of purchasing that freedom. One of the most confused statements is financial stability. Many people confuse that term financial stability with financial dependence. At the level where you have transitioned from dependence, you are depending on your parents, you have moved out from your parents' home and you're establishing yourself, but you are still not generating enough resources that can cover all your expenses, meaning that you have a level of dependence on other people. Using other people's money, that is what we call borrowing. Whether you are borrowing from your parents, your friends, your brothers, or you are borrowing from established financial institutions, or even from the black market, they commonly refer to as Shylocks. That is a level of independence. You are not depending on yourself. So these terms can be used relatively or subjectively depending on the subject under discussion. At that point, below what should be real financial stability, we have two stages. You have the lower stage of financial dependence on other people. When you use financial tools like a budget and you choose to be deliberate enough and build a relationship with your money and make adjustments to your lifestyle, make adjustments to your expense pattern. Because at that stage, you may not take so necessary actions in a short time to create a change in your income. It will require longer time to get a meaningful change in your income through acquisition of a new skill, through acquisition of a new engagement that can build or bring in an extra income. Therefore, at that stage, the only thing that you can do is work on adjusting downwards your expenses. It is at that point when we talk of a budget. But still, budget will apply differently at the different stages in the financial freedom journey. The way a person under the stage of dependence will use a budget is different from how a stable person will use a budget, which will also be very different from how a wealthy person will use a budget. Because at all these stages, we need to have a financial tool in the name of a budget, but it should be flexible enough depending on the stage which you will have acquired in that journey. For a dependent person, a person whose active incomes are not enough to settle all the expenses and for the lifestyle that he has adopted at that particular stage, if they choose to be deliberate, if they choose to have a positive relationship with their money, then it will mean they build some adjustment in terms of their expenses. It could mean this person moving from the current home or house where they are renting to maybe a smaller house, which would mean a lower amount of rent expense, or move further, a further distance from where they are living to a neighborhood of a similar house but a lower rent expense, because we are looking at reducing the expense items. It could mean this person working on their menu, how they relate, the relationship between their money and food, how they deal with that expense item. It could mean transferring children from a certain school to another school to manage the education cost, or whatever way you are going to adapt in adjusting your expenses. That at that level, your budget is helping you acquire self reliability, self dependence, self sufficiency, ensuring that your incomes are just enough to cover all your expenses. And in this case, you have to consider all expenses. If there is a family support that you are sending back home, the one that you like calling black tax, that also has to be figured out as part of your budget. By so doing, such a person will have acquired financial dependence, financial dependence, or independence, if you like, meaning that you are shedding off that reliance of other people in paying or supporting your own bills. Instead of saving towards investment vehicles, We look at saving time or investing in extra time to acquire a skill, volunteering at a place of work. It could be at a construction site. This individual who was being used as a loader, carrying heavy blocks from one point to another and barrels of sand and everything, they can spare a time. They are tired, but they can spare a time to acquire a skill in bricklaying, acquire a skill in plastering, acquire a skill in painting, which has a potential of giving them a daily yield, a daily wage that is higher than what they're getting doing the manual part of at that site. That is a form of investment. And progress as we progress upward that ladder, then as money starts flowing in, we'll be looking now at setting actual amounts of money towards an investment vehicle, towards saving. But that lower level, it's building skills that are available at that particular level. And because poverty charges interest, and poverty is merely insufficiency or inability to settle a specific need when it arises. And this is how poverty charges interest. You get a vehicle leakage. Could be oil leakage, could be water leakage or coolant leakage. And because at that point, you do not have a reliable source of money that you can quickly fix this leakage, that delay because of lack of cash, that's poverty. Poverty is simply unable, that lack at that moment, that poverty, because you are unable to fix this leak at the moment, and you have to wait longer for a salary that is coming after another 20 days. During that waiting period, the problem is still compounding. The problem is progressing, and you may require to fit a gasket. You may require to replace engine. Inability to satisfy a need as it emerges, causing a delay to look for funds or waiting for a regular income that is supposed to flow in, that poverty period causes you to go for a major or incur a higher cost than you would have incurred. And this is synonymous with the old saying, usipo ziba ufa utajenga ukuta. Loosely translated to, if you don't repair a crack, you eventually build the entire wall. Poverty charges interest. Poverty, when compounded with ignorance, it compounds the interest that it charges. You have attained a certain age that you know you are supposed to be going for some screening for purpose of taming some potential diseases. But out of ignorance, but out of what you are thinking as lack of money for such tests, you choose to delay and wait. Then a disease mutates and progresses from a stage 1, which could easily be treated, to a stage 2, a stage 3. And before you know it, and the disease starts showing symptoms that can force you for such checkups, pain, trembling, shivers, it has already progressed to advanced stages that are almost impossible to treat. That's poverty. And that is when we explain that, are you earning 100,000? You could easily be poor compared to a person earning 20,000, because it majorly depends on the relationship that you build with your money. A person earning 20,000 and they are conscious and deliberately building a relationship with their money, they can be richer than a person earning 100,000 and living paycheck to paycheck, meaning that there is nothing they set aside for a reserve. There is nothing they set aside to take care of emergencies, because we have taken emergency fund literally to be a fund. But an emergency fund or any other investment that is supposed to cushion you during this gap when you are waiting for another income. That is the fund that cushions you against poverty and the interest that compounds getting charged by poverty. That window of luck. When you don't have an emergency fund and you find yourself in such a situation where you have to borrow, already that insufficiency, that inability to organize for such cash from your short-term investments charges you interest. And you have only solved the element of compounding with it, because whatever you have borrowed, you are going to pay with interest. The greatest source of problems and illness is an empty wallet. To be financially stable, you must be able to meet all your expenses comfortably, all your expenses. Then, beyond that, if there is any debt that you're having, whether it's consumer debt or business debt, you are servicing those debts comfortably. And in addition, you are putting aside savings and investments. That is when you become financially stable. A financial coach, or if you do consultation at that stage, you'll now be looking at ways of working around your expenses, eliminating some unnecessary things that you are doing. And that is after you have gotten an understanding that you are supposed to be buying your financial freedom. And the faster you do it, the better. And now, for that reason, you adopt to be deliberate, to build a closer relationship with your money, and you carefully check through your expenses to eliminate or ward off some unnecessary expenditures that you are doing, and you are doing that purposely to expand the amount that you are setting aside through savings and investing. You are not using a budget to settle your financial baseline. You are not using the budget to adjust your expenses to fit within those means. You have expanded your means already. You are doing everything possible, and as financial stability, you are investing, you're saving, and everything. But now you are now adopting a budget after realizing or acquiring extra financial literacy or information that reminds you, and you choose now consciously to increase or better your relationship with your money. And by reducing some expenses that you're doing in entertainment, other things that you are reducing some unnecessary expenditures, gives you an increased amount balance that you can channel towards your saving and investing, thereby achieving your goals faster. That is the use of a budget by a financially stable individual. There is what I've mentioned, a financial baseline, something that is very, very important in your financial journey. And a financial baseline would require, or is a list of, or a portfolio of your expenses that you must take care of if you are broke. At your lowest point, those expenses that you must take care of just to survive, that is what forms your financial baseline. You need a roof over your head or over your family. You need basic meals for your household. You need school fees, basic education for your children. You need some other basic things that make life comfortable. You need proper lighting, you need water, you need clothing, you need medical care. At the very bottom, that least amount because it will vary from one person to another. That list, the least amount that you can survive on, where you draw your red line, that is your financial baseline. That a point where you feel I should never go below this point. That is your financial baseline. And that is what you must focus on as the first goal that you want to achieve. Building investments that guarantee you, your family, that minimum baseline or that minimum lifestyle. That will be your first goal. You may need, that is your first goal. And it requires us careful noting down of what you must have for rent. The least house or the least neighborhood where you can live. Put it down. Identify the minimum shopping and food budget for the family. Get a total of the least lifestyle that you expect. That total you multiply by 12. A good example for a person paying a rent of 10,000, maybe they have an electricity bill of 1,500, a water bill of 2,500, a food budget of, let's take an example of 5,000. That is giving us about, that is already at 19,000. Then let's say they have another bill of 6,000 to a public school for the kids. We are at 25,000, and a miscellaneous of 5,000, that is 30,000. For 30,000, we multiply by 12 to get 360,000, meaning that we need to build a portfolio or an investment. A portfolio is just a collection, number of assets that put together or enlisted together to form or to cater for a specific objective. That's a portfolio. So we need to assemble a portfolio, diversify by putting in assets of different classes, but collectively they are supposed to generate an amount of 360,000, which we need for a year as our financial baseline. Then we look at an appropriate, a most prudent rate of return, and we assume a 10%, meaning that the size of the portfolio that we will need is an amount that will give us 360,000 at 10%. And that could be 3.6 million. Get 3.6 million, you are getting 360,000. That becomes the minimum investment goal for such an individual. And that one should never be touched. It's a financial baseline investment. That is not a portfolio for lifestyle. It's just a financial baseline investment. Once you have attained that one, it gives you peace of mind. The most important thing that you look for, it's peace of mind. It's not financial freedom, but peace of mind. That is what you also get from an emergency fund. It gives you relief and peace of mind. You know that in the event something happening, you have somewhere to run to. Not friends or people who may fail you at your hour of need, but you have money set aside somewhere, an investment set aside somewhere that you can turn to at your hour of need, because money is loyal. Your money will never fail you. Money is loyal. And where money fails, that is where God comes in. Where money fails, that is where God comes in, because money takes care of all problems. Even those things that we are told money can never buy, money matters in those things. Money cannot buy sleep, but when you are broke and you know rent is not paid, your children may be chased from school because of lack of fees, you can't get that sleep. So money matters in everything, and money is a loyal friend. Once you have that peace of mind, you now have the extra energy and ability to work towards the other goals. The financial baseline is the one that will keep on growing towards achieving your financial independence, because our financial baseline is not being touched so long as we are generating our active incomes and paying our bills. So our financial baseline, the 360,000 that is being generated from our example, will be reinvested the following year. A reinvestment of 360,000 means that the following year we have an extra 36,000. It's like our financial baseline has increased. The monthly need provision has increased by 3,000. You were looking for 30,000, now we are at 33. And with the time, this financial baseline, once you achieve it, you will be able to break records of those other or next goals that you'll be setting. And eventually, if you don't lose your main sources of income actively, this financial baseline investment has the potential of growing enough to give you financial independence. Financial independence, you will acquire it when you necessarily don't have to work. You are going to work, you are doing everything, but the income that you are generating through your active by trading your hours, your assets that you have assembled, your investments are generating a similar amount or more. At that point, you are able to switch. So switch off your active incomes and activate your passive incomes from investments. However, financial independence, because it's just a point that you have, it's just a point that you attain, it's a level that you have attained. It can also be shaky. And if you play around, you'll get back to independence, back to your stability, but you're no longer at independent. And that is the reason why we have to amass more wealth, more assets to push us to the coveted level of freedom. Because financial freedom is different from financial independence. Financial independence, you are depending on assets. You're not your active income anymore. The incomes or cash flows that you are getting from your investments, your assets, can sustain you. That is financial independence. But financial freedom is where your time is more important than the money. You trade your money to free your time. At that point, your currency is time and not money. At that time, or at that point of financial freedom, your time is so expensive, you can trade money for that time. Somebody engaging you for an hour at that level of financial freedom, you can comfortably give out money to them to look for another person to take care of whatever you needed this person to do, because they need their time. And to them, time is more valuable than money. Freedom. At the point of financial freedom, we have that switch, money and time, where your time becomes more valuable than the money. In essence, you need your time. Your freedom is the time. Your time is so free. The money is no longer an issue. It no longer bothers you about the cash flow and your bills. It's about your time. Poverty charges interest, and financial stability is not financial reliability. Financial reliability is a stage below financial stability, because at financial stability reliability stage, you are looking at an income just enough to cater for your bills. Stability, you are taking care of all your bills, you are funding your savings and investments, you are also servicing all your debts, consumer debts, business debts at that stage. And any adjustment that you need to do at that stage is a point of building, or is a point you want to better your relationship with your money after acquiring new information and seeing a need to build or improve your relationship with your money and a need to purchase your financial freedom faster. Thank you for watching and see you in our next video.